Hi, I'm Rajbir. Welcome to Conversations with Mentors. We are mentors from IIT Delhi and I'm Bangalore. I4 Mentors Foundation. We are a not for profit. We are starting a cohort soon, and these are conversations with cohort leaders. Okay, there you are. Hey, Vinay, how are you? Welcome again. Thanks for volunteering for this meeting and volunteering to mentor the startups who are part of I4 Mentors Foundation. Thanks again. It's been a lovely experience knowing you, Vinay, over the last so many years. You've done such wonderful work with startups, both while you were at Chandigarh, when we first met at IIT Delhi, and subsequently you mentored so many startups as part of our program. And so what we really wanted to do today was to hear your experiences and kind of record them so that others can also benefit from them. And so I have a series of questions which we'll to keep it conversational. Okay. So we're calling the series as Conversations with Mentors. Right. So the first, so start by getting to know you better. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience, your background, and how you got into mentoring of startups. If you could talk about your startups mentoring experience, that'd be really nice.
Right. Thank you, Rajbir, for inviting me to this discussion. I'm very happy, and my experience with I4 has been wonderful in the past, and I've learned many things from I4 Mentors Foundation. Personally, when we used to meet at IIT Delhi earlier, every fourth Saturday of the month, and later having these online sessions every Saturday. So it's been great, working with some of you and learning from you. I I am Vinay Mehta, and I am a co-founder and a director of a company called Poleward Technologies Private Limited. We started it in 2005, and we primarily look into the healthcare services, the healthcare IT services, and the engineering services. So those are two core areas, right? And so since 2005, 2018, we were doing our own business and services, for the Indian and the foreign clients, particularly US clients. And so in 2018, I thought that, we should, now that, I've got some experience in running my own stuff, so I should be able to give back to the society in the sense that, I should be looking around and seeing who are the people who want to come out and, in as an entrepreneur, So I started interacting with the universities around Chandigarh and all these places, because by the time the startup thing had just started, the government was giving a push to the startups and all these things, right? So I have been doing part-time consulting with the universities, in the region, and I connected to the faculty members and students who were enthusiastic about developing their own ideas into products and taking them to market. So I found a connect with them, and that's how I got into the startup world. That was around 2018, and since then, my primary area of focus has been healthcare and medical devices, because I think India needs a lot of such low cost solutions and devices, uh, because we have huge population. We have population that cannot afford costly stuff, right? And we have I would say the bottom of the pyramid of the world, actually, right? Though no doubt Africa is also there and other continents are also there, but then here, if you want to test a device and it becomes successful, I believe it can become successful anywhere in the world, including Southeast Asia, Africa, even Europe and US, right? So that's how I approached. So first I started. Working with faculty members and students is different, because faculty members are more research oriented and they want the publications and all those things. And whereas the students are always focused on, okay, what do I do after I get a degree from here, and then, should I apply for a job, or should I, go with my own venture? They are in kind of, but some students are very clear about it, that they want to start their own venture, and they want to. So I have worked with all kinds of students, faculties, and even entrepreneurs outside. I have been a member of TIE, Chandigarh, and other like FICCI and CII. Regularly interact with them. But the point I'm trying to make here is that people who are passionate about solving a problem, right? I like to work with them, and I have had the good fortune of working with such startups. One of the startups, recent, in my experience, there were two guys. One from MBA, he's MBA marketing. The other guy was a techie guy, the AI guy, right? And so they had a team of 4 or 5 people. That was in Bhubaneswar. So they come out with a non-invasive device for identifying or diagnosing the cardiovascular diseases. So that was really very, and that device is a small device. It can be kept on the table, put to your chest, and within, I think, around 5 minutes or so, it can take out your ECG. It can hear your, ventricles, different ventricles sounds, and try to come out with a diagnosis actually, right? So that was really, kind of, I would say, it looked good to me, and kind of revolutionary, because without taking a blood sample, without taking anything, they are trying to diagnose, and they had an accuracy of, I mean, the specificity and sensitivity, what they call in the medical devices, of above 95%, right? So I asked them, okay, how do you do it? So they explained me all the process inside and all those things, and they had developed their own algorithms for identifying that. At that time, it was 2020, 2021, right? So the COVID was, the second wave of the COVID was at its peak. So I asked them, okay, can we do this? That instead of just focusing on heart, can we focus on lungs, right? Because when you breathe, you also make a sound, right? So why can't we identify what is the state of our lungs, right? And can we identify whether we can have, I mean, we have a risk of COVID, or we already have COVID, or some percentage of COVID. So they immediately jumped on the idea, and they said, okay, yes. So within 1 month, they came out with a prototype on the same machine, right, on the same device. And I was so happy. I was the first person to get tested on it, right? and and they said, okay, sir, your lungs are working very fine, right? So I said, yeah, thanks a lot. But then what they did, within 4 or 5 members of their own, they tested the device, right? Then I said, okay, so since I was working in a university which had its own hospital also, right? So I connected them to a pulmonologist, right? So he said, we can accommodate them in the normal ward if they want to test. I cannot put them to the COVID ward because of various restrictions and all those things. So you really cannot say right now that you will be testing COVID patients, but yes, you can, get more data, because we have almost a footfall of around 300, 400 people in the OPD every day in the pulmonology department, right? So I said, that's good enough for us, right? So I connected them to that. They had just 2 devices, at that time, you know, and it was, so they went with their own stuff and parked themselves, both the founders, So what I see is that, people who want to do hands-on themselves, right, and want to interact with the customers themselves, this is a wonderful field to be in, the entrepreneurship thing, right? If you are hands-on, if you know how to do your own job, if you know how to navigate the whole thing, how to take an appointment, how to go through the process of ethics committee and all those things. So those guys knew all those things, right? So we went through the process for around 15-20 days and got all the approvals, and then they went to the OPD, and so they started. So they collected the data of 1,000 patients, right? So we could identify various diseases of lungs using the data, right? So this was just one hospital, right? So we planned to diversify into different hospitals across the city and the state, actually, right? So for that they needed funds, because now you just can't do it with 2 devices, and you need more people on board, right? So they can be trained, and they can So all these things, we did, and we got a small grant of 25 lakhs from one of the angels also to get them going. So this was a wonderful experience for me, because when you
Yeah,
help
Vinay, I mean,
people
yeah,
cut down you just see the amount of patient wait time that has been cut using that device, right? That has been reduced using that device. It's immense. A patient who had to wait for half a day for his turn, and the doctor is putting stethoscope, and doctor is so tired at the end of the day, that he, I don't think as a human being, he can very very specifically tell, okay, you have this problem, you have this problem. He might subscribe some tests. This is what generally people do, right? They will write some tests. Okay, ये test करवा के आइए, उसके बाद फिर हम देखेंगे, right? So then the patient is into another round of tests and all those things, coming back to again OPD next some other day, right? So all these things are kind of cut off using the device, and the device, the prototype itself costs just 800 bucks, right? And I asked them, okay, what are the components? So we looked through the components, and all the components were locally available. That's the best part of it, right? They were not dependent on any Chinese components and all those things. So I think that and now they are scaling up, and so that has been a wonderful experience for me, right?
thanks, Vinay. I think that was a great experience. I know you talked about this earlier as well. And so you brought in so many startups when we were when we met the first time. You brought in a couple
Yes.
of startups from Jakarta University, and then subsequently as well. And then we interacted on that another startup which was very similar. The product somebody was trying to develop. Now, uh, so you have seen a very different variety of startups in the healthcare space. Where do you see the opportunities? For example, one of the things you talked about was there's a need to reduce the cost of one is healthcare service, and I'm probably you're saying the overall cost of healthcare delivery itself. So where do you see the opportunities for startups in the healthcare domain?
Okay, for the for the healthcare sector, I will focus on that, right? I have had the experience of implementing the healthcare information system in 55 government hospitals of Haryana, right? That has given me immense experience, hands-on experience. uh, I will just give us very small example. I went to a place called Gohana in Haryana. They have a medical college there, and I was there at 7 o'clock in the morning because we were trying to do the dry run of our system. Actually, the dry run means you're testing it, not before the final go live, but for 15 days you test the whole software in the actual situation. How does it work? What are the hiccups? Where do we need to streamline? Where do we need to see whether our software is matching the human processes and all those things, right? So there I saw a line of in the OPD at 7 o'clock, around 150 people standing in the line. And
7 in the morning. 7 in the morning.
yes,
And
7
where
in the
was
morning
this? Where was this?
in Gohana. There is Pandit BDS, medical college there, right? And they were all from different villages. I mean, they must have started at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to reach the hospital at 7 o'clock, right? So you can imagine the pain, right? So one patient, one attendant at least. So that means if the family of the patient is affected, so two people and one patient will definitely come because you're starting so early in the morning, right? Some people had come overnight actually, right? Now that when we started doing a dry run, right? And we've definitely faced hiccups, right? So the line was not moving. I said, what happened? He says, sir, the entry time is taking 1 minute, right? I said, we can't we reduce it? How can we reduce it, right? 1 minute for one person means 150 minutes for the last person, right? So which is more than 2.5 hours, yeah, about 2.5 hours, right? So that's not acceptable, right? So what we did was we said, okay, we will have 4 5 counters for the new patients, 3 counters for the patients who are repeat visits, right? So that we can reduce the number in each line. So that was the first commonsensical approach, right? Then we looked into this process of the keying in the particulars and all those things, right? So that was also streamlined by our software guys, within 2 days, right? So ultimately, we were able to reduce the patient wait time by 80% by the end of dry run, right? Which means if a patient had to wait for, half an hour, then he would be waiting for just 5 to 7 minutes for his turn, right? For making his card and, going to. Then we did another thing was people who are repeat and they have some special appointment. They're called clinics actually, right? With the doctor or that specialist department. We opened the counters in the department itself, right? So that they don't even come to the general OPD, right? So that's how we reduce. So this is just a commonsensical approach, right? So the first and foremost is the patient experience and patient comfort. You have to focus on that. If you're not focusing being a healthcare startup on that, that means you're missing something very, very great, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is that you should be, your product or service should bring out the core thing, the meat of the matter, right? Of the pain experience of the patient, right? For example, this device, which I spoke about earlier, right? It just told you within 5 to 10 minutes that these are the possible diagnoses of this, right? And now you need to go to a specialist. That means you will go to a clinic and find out, okay, what exactly your problem is. And, you know, then you take the treatment forward, right? So what I'm trying to say is that this reduction of time as well as correct diagnosis, correct, the reaching a specificity and sensitivity above 95% is the most important. These are two things most important actually. And if you're working on the service part of it, then that experience, the whole experience has to be very, very comfortable to the patient, right? They just don't need to run around, and they should not see coming to hospital as something like which is now a burden, and which most of us do. Actually, if you go to any government hospital, you will come to know what kind of pain, apart from the actual bodily pain, patients and their attendants go through. I have been there. There's a big hospital here, the PGI, which you must be knowing, Rajbi, and there the daily OPD is almost 20,000, different departments, right? So you have to wait there for 2 hours to get your turn, actually, right? After making your card.
20,000
yes,
people?
yes, right. In different departments, it's a big hospital,
Yeah,
it's a big institute, right? It's like
still a large number, actually.
Yeah. So how can you reduce that pain, additional pain of the patient, and make him comfortable with your service or the solution or the device, right? That is what your focus has to be on.
So how do you see technology helping you with this? You came in, when you initially came in, you came in with a few technology-based startups. So how do you see technology? Like you gave this recent example of the monitoring the chest and lungs and so on. So how do you see technology helping in one, reducing the disease severity itself, okay, and reducing the total cost of the treatment?
Right. Uh, uh, there
You,
are
you
two
can't reduce the
examples.
severity, you can prevent it from becoming severe.
Yes, there are two examples here. In the healthcare implementation project in Haryana, what we did was we connected the system with the devices through DICOM interface, right? Which means now for the reports, you don't have to wait for 2-3 days, right? Instantly, if you're undergoing MRI or CT scan or even blood test, right? All your all your devices are connected to the system, right? They will automatically transfer the results to the system, right? So what we did was we reduced the time of getting the reports to less than 1 day. I mean, same day report, right? Which is kind of revolutionary. Otherwise, you go to any government facility and they say, okay, 4 दिन बाद आना, come after 4 days and then you take your report, right? So 4 days the patient is in pain, right? After 4th day, he goes with the report to the doctor, right? And then doctor writes him some medication or something, and then that releases. So that's a cycle of approximately a week's time, right? That we reduced to only 2 days, right? So that is one as far as the service is concerned, right? So how do you? That's technology, because of technology, because of the interfaces, that's how we reduce the time, right? Second is like using this device, I mean, most of the people would say that AI and ML is, I mean, now we don't say, but earlier when it started, that it's a very, untested technology and all those things. But I find that AI and ML, in the scenario of diagnosis, even radiology, right? The reports, the severity of COVID, all these things. I mean, there have been numerous startups in India that have just scanned the chest X-rays and told you, okay, this is the kind of percentage of COVID you are infected with, right? Your lungs are 55% infected, or your lungs are 20% infected, or 95 infected, right? So even with the cancer and everything else, the technology is helping making those decisions is helping clinicians make those decisions very, very easy to make, actually, right? So that's what how the technology is playing its role, and I think it's going to increase day by day and help us not replace the clinicians, but help them diagnose the actual disease and so that they get the treatment accordingly.
It's a great point, actually. Right? Yeah, it's a great enabler to help you get to the root cause quickly. Get to the
Absolutely.
Now, so we have just a few minutes left now. So the last question that I have is, what kind of cohort members or startups would you select for your cohort? So let's say if you were to,
Right.
mentoring.
Right. So basically, your question is about, how do we select that who can,
What would you look for in a startup? How would you look
right.
for, what would you look for in a startup when you select for mentoring?
Right. So the first and foremost is I want committed founders and team members. They may be a very small team. Like I worked with the startup, there were only 4 or 5 team members and 2 of the founders, right? One was the original founder, one was a co-founder. So all those things, right? So, and how much your own sweat and equity you have put in, that is much more important. Are you riding on somebody else's money, or you are using your own money? There's a difference, right? So I would prefer people who are bootstrapped and trying to do something, even if they have tested their prototype with 10 people and it has worked, right? And so that is one thing. Second, the level of product should be near about MVP, right? Not just a prototype, but I mean, they should be a bit ahead in the sense that they should be thinking about design of the product. They should be thinking about the functionality or the features vis-a-vis the competition, right? And which are those features which can get them to the market faster, right? And acceptability in the market. So all those things they should be, they should be curious about, or they should be ready to learn about all these things. And it's very, very important to know the competition, even if there is no direct competition. I mean, most of the startups I hear that, sir, we don't have any competition. It's not possible, right? You might not have the same product in the market, but then there are other products which are satisfying those needs, right? Actually, there is when I work with the startups, I work on this theory, which is very, very important. Is jobs to be done theory. What are the jobs you're trying to focus on, which the user or the customer is solved using your product, right? Like I'll give you an example. This is a very, which is very easy to understand, is that a customer needs a 1/4-inch hole, not a 1/4-inch drill. So what is he using the drill for? Is for making that hole. If your drill cannot make that hole, or is making not a perfect hole, then he would not need it. He will use some other product, right? So jobs to be done, and it can be applied in any of the scenarios, in the sense marketing or product development or customer experience. So you list out what all jobs the customer wants to get done through your product, right? And that will help you identify where you fit in, where you don't fit in, where you need to improve upon. Right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I completely agree. Yes. I think those are great points, Vinay. One, I think you made a great point when you said you're looking for people who are committed, and especially if somebody's putting a little bit of their own effort and money in trying to develop the solution. That's a great point, because commitment makes a big difference in terms of their, how long can they sustain it, and how deeply are they involved in it.
Very right. Very right.
Second is you talk about jobs to be done. I think this is a great framework. I think You need to be doing a better job than the way it is already being done by somebody else. Right? No, absolutely. Anything else you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I want is people should have hands-on experience themselves, working through various processes and those things. They should not be dependent on other people that, okay, I have a mentor, no, he will do this and then I will do this, right? Or, I will outsource this. Let's not, I mean, in the initial days, you need to be so sure that you should be able to do everything on your own. You should be the CEO, but then you should be the delivery boy also of your startup, right? So I mean, as the situation demands, right? So I like working with those kind of people.
So you like the humility part of it, actually. You want the guys to
Yes.
be, I'm not wearing the badge of CEO, therefore I'll not do this, I'll not do that.
Yes.
It's a great point, actually. Humility is extremely important. It also, allows you to learn from others. That's
Very right.
so constant learning, pivoting. Those are great, critical factors which help you succeed. Because you can't get it right in the first instance. On
Very
average,
right.
right? You need to go through a few iterations. On average, on 4 iterations, every company goes through or every innovation goes through before it gets accepted in the market.
Very right, Rajbi. The important point you've taken up is the pivoting part, right? See, many times we go to the market, we don't get the response. Usually, we don't get the response what we should be getting, what we are expecting, right? So we need to rethink that what do we need to change in ourselves or our team or our processes or our features. What are those? So many times I found that the features which seem very unimportant to you, but they're very important to the customer.
Absolutely.
Right? And you could sell on those features.
Awesome, Vinay. Thank you so much. I think it was a wonderful conversation. I'm sorry we're running out of time. I would love to carry on.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thank you.
No, it was wonderful, and
Thank
look
you.
forward to you mentoring many more startups and creating value, not only for the starters but for the overall healthcare ecosystem.
Sure.
Thanks. Okay, take care. Bye.
Sure. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye. Hi, I'm Rajbir. Welcome to Conversations with Mentors. We are mentors from IIT Delhi and I'm Bangalore. I4 Mentors Foundation. We are a not for profit. We are starting a cohort soon, and these are conversations with cohort leaders.